Thomas was a fisherman who lived in a small village by the river. He loved his wife and 2 children very much. Every day, he went out on his boat to catch fish and bring them home for his family. One early morning, Thomas kissed his wife and children goodbye and set off to fish in a part of the river he had never explored before. The water was deep and clear, and he felt something special was about to happen. After many hours, just as Thomas was about to give up, his net caught something heavy. He pulled with all his K9*, and expecting a big fish, but instead, he found a beautiful mermaid. She had shimmering blue and green scales and golden hair. Her eyes were as blue as the ocean. Thomas quickly freed the mermaid from his net. "Thank you," she whispered. Before he could say anything, a strong current pulled the boat, and Thomas was swept into a whirlpool. When the waters calmed, Thomas realized he was in an underwater world filled with colorful sea creatures. The mermaid he had saved was there, along with other mermaids and mermen. They welcomed him kindly, and he discovered that time moved differently there. Days turned into weeks as Thomas explored this magical world. He was amazed by its beauty and the way the merfolk lived in harmony. Yet, he missed his family dearly. The mermaid stayed by his side, comforting him. One day, the mermaid took Thomas to meet the guardian of their world, an old merman with silver hair and green eyes. "Thomas," the guardian said, "you have a choice. You can stay here with us, or you can return to your world above." And Thomas closed his eyes and took a deep breath. The mermaid's kind presence and the guardian's wise words swirled in his mind. He opened his eyes and looked at the hidden pathway to the surface. The guardian spoke again, "Before you decide, let me show you something important." The guardian led Thomas and the mermaid to an ancient, towering structure hidden deep within the coral reefs. The walls were covered with glowing symbols. "This is the Hall of Memories," the guardian explained. "It holds the stories of those who came before you." As they entered, the walls shimmered, showing scenes from the past. Thomas saw other humans who had met the merfolk. Some stayed, and some went back to their world. Each story was filled with happiness and sadness. One story caught Thomas's eye. It was about a fisherman like him who stayed and was happy with the merfolk, but he missed his family on the surface. "These are the choices you face," the guardian said. "Every path has its good and bad parts." Thomas felt many emotions as he watched the stories. He saw children born from humans and merfolk living together happily. He also saw the pain of being away from loved ones. The guardian's voice echoed, "The choice is yours, Thomas. Your heart will guide you." The mermaid turned to Thomas, her eyes filled with empathy. "No matter what you choose, know that you will always have a place here," she said gently. Thomas felt grateful for the mermaid's kindness and the guardian's wisdom. He knew his decision would shape his future. Just as Thomas was about to speak, the walls of the Hall of Memories shimmered again, showing his family waiting and hoping for his return. His wife sat by the riverbank, their children playing nearby. The longing in their eyes was clear. Thomas's heart ached, and he knew his decision would affect not just his life but theirs too. Thomas watched the image of his family, their hope and longing clear on their faces. He could almost hear their voices, the laughter of his children playing. The weight of his decision pressed heavily on his heart. The guardian and the mermaid watched silently as Thomas struggled with his feelings. The mermaid placed a gentle hand on his shoulder, her eyes full of understanding. "Thomas," she said softly, "sometimes, love means making hard choices." Thomas nodded, feeling a surge of clarity. He knew that his love for his family was the strongest force guiding his heart. With a deep breath, he turned to the guardian and the mermaid. "I must return to my family," he said, his voice steady despite the tears in his eyes. "They need me." The guardian smiled warmly. "You have chosen wisely, Thomas. Your love for your family is a powerful bond. But remember, the magic of this world will always be a part of you." The mermaid handed Thomas a small, glowing shell. This will allow you to return if you ever need to, she explained. Just hold it close and think of us. With a final, heartfelt farewell, Thomas turned towards the hidden pathway. As he ascended, the underwater world began to fade, replaced by the familiar sights and sounds of the surface. He broke through the water, gasping for air and feeling the warmth of the sun on his face. The riverbank was just as he remembered it, but it felt different now, more precious. Thomas made his way to the riverbank, where he saw his wife and children. His wife looked up, her eyes widening in disbelief before filling with tears of joy. "Thomas," she cried, running towards him with the children close behind. Thomas embraced his family, feeling the love and warmth he had missed so deeply. "I'm home," he whispered, holding them tightly. Thomas embraced his family, feeling the warmth and love he had longed for. The reunion was filled with tears of joy and laughter, the children clinging to him as if afraid he might disappear again. His wife looked at him with a mix of relief and amazement. "We thought we had lost you forever," she whispered, holding him tightly. Days turned into weeks as Thomas settled back into his old life, but something had changed within him. The memories of the underwater world and the merfolk stayed with him, a reminder of the incredible journey he had experienced. He often found himself standing by the riverbank, the glowing shell in his hand, thinking about the friends he had made below. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky with hues of orange and pink, Thomas felt a familiar pull. He knew it was time to share his story with his family. Gathering them around the fireplace, he began to recount his adventure. His children's eyes widened in wonder, and his wife's expression softened with understanding. Thomas explained how he had met the mermaid, the magical underwater world, and the difficult choice he had faced. "I chose to come back because I love you all more than anything," he said, his voice full of emotion. "But I will always carry a piece of that world in my heart." As the days passed, Thomas found new ways to incorporate the wisdom and magic he had learned into his everyday life. He taught his children about the importance of nature, the beauty of the underwater world, and the value of making hard choices for the ones you love. His stories became a cherished part of their bedtime routine, filling their dreams with wonder and adventure. One sunny morning, while Thomas was fishing by the river with his son, he noticed something sparkling in the water. It was the same kind of glow he had seen in the underwater realm. Curious, he reached down and pulled out a small, radiant pearl. His son gasped in awe, and Thomas knew that the magic of the merfolk had found a way to connect their worlds. That evening, Thomas placed the pearl beside the glowing shell. He realized that the bond between his world and the underwater realm was stronger than ever. He didn't need to choose one over the other completely, both could coexist in his heart and life. Years passed, and Thomas's children grew up with the enchanting tales of their father's adventure. They respected the river and all its creatures, understanding that magic existed not just in stories but in the world around them. Thomas continued to fish and provide for his family, his heart full of love and contentment. One day, as Thomas stood by the riverbank watching the sunset, he felt a gentle touch on his shoulder. Turning, he saw the mermaid who had changed his life. She smiled warmly. "I see you found balance, Thomas," she said. "The bond between our worlds remains strong because of your love and choices." Thomas nodded, feeling a deep sense of peace. "Thank you," he said, "for showing me the way." With a final, understanding glance, the mermaid slipped back into the water, disappearing into the depths. Thomas knew he would always be connected to both worlds, his heart bridging the gap between land and sea. As he walked back to his family, Thomas felt a profound sense of fulfillment. He had made the right choices, guided by love, and had created a legacy of wonder and wisdom for his children. The river continued to flow, carrying the stories of the past and the promise of future adventures.